My wife got all dressed up like she was going on a date. I asked, "Where are you going?" She rolled her eyes and said, "That's none of your business." Then she smirked and added, "What if I told you I was meeting someone you wouldn't like?" I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just made one phone call and handed her my phone. The color drained from her face. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. The afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen window, catching dust motes in the air like tiny satellites orbiting nothing. Jeffrey Crowley sat at the oak dining table, the one they bought together 5 years ago at a Labor Day sale, and watched his wife descend staircase. Sophia moved differently now. Not the tired shuffle of someone coming home from work, but with purpose, intention. She'd applied makeup with the kind of care usually reserved for special occasions. Though, when Jeffrey had checked the calendar that morning, he'd found nothing marked. Her dress was charcoal gray, tailored close at the waist, professional but deliberate. The fabric caught the light as she moved. Jeffrey had spent 12 years managing logistics for a regional fleet company. His job consisted of tracking variables, identifying patterns, noticing when the numbers didn't align. When a driver reported fuel consumption that exceeded route requirements. When maintenance costs spiked without corresponding mileage. When people lied, they always left traces. His wife was leaving traces. "You heading out?" Jeffrey kept his voice neutral, the same tone he used when asking drivers about their delivery schedules. Sophia paused at the bottom of the stairs, one hand resting on the newel post. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Calculation, maybe, or irritation. She turned toward him slowly, as if the simple question had interrupted some complex mental process. "Why do you always do that?" Her voice carried an edge, sharp and immediate. "Do what?" "Interrogate me. Question everything." She picked up her purse from the entry table, checked her phone. "It's suffocating, Jeffrey. I can't even leave the house without you monitoring me." He'd asked one question, a normal question, the kind married people asked each other every day. "Where are you going? When will you be back? Do you need anything while you're out?" These were the rhythms of shared lives. But Sophia was reframing the conversation, turning his mild inquiry into something darker. "I was just asking," Jeffrey said carefully. She crossed to the door, keys jangling in her hand. A new keychain, he noticed, not the leather one he'd given her last Christmas. This one was silver, minimal, expensive looking. "I need space," Sophia said, turning to face him fully now. Her eyes had that look, the one she'd developed over the past 3 months. Wounded, defensive. "You're controlling. You make me feel unsafe." The word landed like a stone dropped into still water. Unsafe. Not uncomfortable. Not crowded. Unsafe. Jeffrey felt something shift in his chest. Not panic, not anger. Clarity. Cold and absolute. That word was a weapon. Strategic. Chosen. He didn't respond. Just watched as she opened the door and stepped into the warm Texas evening. The door clicking shut behind her with a sound that felt final. The house settled into silence. Jeffrey sat motionless, his coffee going cold in front of him, and thought about patterns. About logistics. About how every deception, no matter how careful, eventually revealed its structure. Outside, the sprinklers kicked on with their familiar rhythmic click and hiss. The neighborhood was winding down into evening routines, garage doors closing, dinner smells drifting through open windows, the distant sound of children being called inside. Everything looked normal. Jeffrey stood and walked to his home office, the small converted bedroom at the back of the house where he kept his work laptop and files. He opened a new folder on his desktop and labeled it simply, Documentation. Then he sat down and began to type. The changes had been gradual. That's what made them dangerous. If Sophia had transformed overnight, Jeffrey would have noticed immediately, questioned it, demanded answers. But she'd shifted in degrees, small adjustments that accumulated over weeks and months until the woman sitting across from him at breakfast bore only superficial resemblance to the person he'd married. It started with the gym. Sophia had always been health conscious, but never obsessive. Then suddenly, she was going 5 times a week. 6. Sessions that lasted 3 hours. She'd come home flushed and energized, disappearing immediately into the shower, taking her phone with her. The phone was the second change. For years, they'd known each other's passcodes, not because they checked each other's devices, but because it was convenient. Jeffrey knew hers, she knew his. It was the casual intimacy of people who trusted each other, who had nothing to hide. Then, one morning, Jeffrey had picked up her phone to check the time while she was in the shower. His was charging in another room, and found the passcode had changed. When he mentioned it later, Sophia had shrugged. "I needed something easier to remember," she'd said, not meeting his eyes as she scrolled through her new phone, the one she'd upgraded to without mentioning it. The girls' nights became more frequent. Every Thursday, sometimes Fridays too. She'd leave around 7 and return after midnight, occasionally later. When Jeffrey asked about her evening, she'd offer vague details. "We went to that new wine bar downtown. You know, the one by the theater. Just talked. It was nice." But her stories had no specificity, no funny anecdotes, no complaints about traffic or parking. Just smooth, generic summaries that could have described any evening anywhere. Jeffrey began to notice other things. New lingerie in the laundry, tags still attached to some pieces. Receipts for restaurants they'd never been to together. Text message notifications that she'd silence immediately, her finger moving to the screen with practice speed. He didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation would only make her more careful, more guarded. Instead, he watched, documented, built his understanding. 2 weeks after the unsafe comment, Jeffrey found himself sitting in the kitchen at 11 o'clock on a Thursday night, waiting. Sophia had left at 7:15, wearing jeans and a silk blouse, hairstyled with effort that suggested this was more than drinks with friends. She told him she'd be back by 10:30. It was now 11:40. When her headlights finally swept across the front windows, Jeffrey didn't move from his position at the table. He heard the car door close, her footsteps on the walkway, the key turning in the lock. Sophia walked in and stopped when she saw him. "You're still up." Not a question, an accusation. "Couldn't sleep," Jeffrey said mildly. She set her purse down with more force than necessary. "I don't need a babysitter, Jeffrey. I'm a grown woman. I wasn't waiting up for you. I was reading." He gestured to the book on the table in front of him, one he'd actually been reading, keeping himself occupied while tracking the time. "It feels like surveillance." She kicked off her heels, each one hitting the floor with a sharp crack. "Like you're checking up on me. Keeping tabs. You said you'd be home by 10:30. It's almost midnight. I was starting to worry. See? That right there. The guilt trip. The way you make everything my fault." Her voice was rising now, taking on a tremor that sounded practiced. "You make me account for every minute. Do you know how exhausting that is?" Jeffrey studied her face. The slight flush in her cheeks could have been from alcohol, but her eyes were clear. Sharp. She wasn't drunk. She was performing. "I'm going to bed," Sophia said abruptly. "I can't deal with this tonight." She left him sitting there, her footsteps heavy on the stairs. A minute later, he heard the bedroom door close, then lock. Jeffrey pulled out his phone and opened his notes app. He recorded the time she'd arrived home, added it to the timeline he'd been building. Then he opened his email and forwarded himself the location history from their shared phone plan, something she'd apparently forgotten they had when she changed her passcode. The data showed her phone had been stationary for the past 3 hours at an address in North Dallas, a residential area, not the wine bar she'd mentioned going to. Jeffrey sat in the quiet kitchen and felt the last piece of something, maybe hope, maybe denial, settle into place. His wife was having an affair. The next morning, Sophia was already gone when Jeffrey woke. No note, no text, just an empty space in the bed and the faint smell of her perfume lingering in the bathroom. He made coffee, scrambled eggs he didn't taste, and drove to work through morning traffic that felt like moving through water. At his desk, Jeffrey opened his personal email and began a new message to his sister, Emily, who lived in Austin. Emily was an attorney, though not the kind he needed right now. Corporate law, mergers and acquisitions. Still, she'd know people. Need a recommendation for a family law attorney in Dallas. Good one. Discreet. Someone who deals with complicated situations. Can you ask around? Jay. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. The reply came 3 hours later. Called a colleague. She says Cole Rivas is the best for what you're probably dealing with. I didn't ask for details because I figure you'll tell me when you're ready. His office info is below. Call me if you need to talk. Love you. Jeffrey saved the information and went back to work, reviewing route reports and fuel consumption data with the same methodical attention he was now applying to his marriage. That evening, Sophia initiated a fight. Jeffrey had noticed the pattern by now. She would create conflict, escalate quickly, then position herself as the victim of his reactions. It was deliberate, calculated. She started by mentioning casually that she wanted to open a credit card, just for her personal expenses. Nothing major. We have joint accounts, Jeffrey said, confused. And 2 credit cards already. Exactly. Joint. I want something that's mine. Is that so unreasonable? No, but we've always shared finances. Why change now? Her expression hardened. Because I'm tired of asking permission for every purchase. Tired of you monitoring everything I spend. I don't monitor you. We budget together. That's not the same thing. You check the accounts constantly. You question charges. You make me feel like I have to justify buying a coffee. This was untrue, and they both knew it. But Jeffrey recognized the tactic now. She was building a narrative, creating a paper trail of complaints that could be referenced later. If you want a personal card, get one, Jeffrey said evenly. I'm not stopping you, but you're upset about it. I can tell. I'm not upset. I'm confused about why it's suddenly necessary. Sophia stood abruptly. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You make everything a fight. You gaslight me into thinking I'm unreasonable when I just want basic autonomy. She grabbed her phone and headed for the stairs. Halfway up, she turned back. I'm texting my sister. I need support right now because you certainly aren't providing it. Jeffrey waited until he heard the bedroom door close. Then he pulled out his phone and opened their shared credit card account. There was a new card listed, opened 3 days ago, in his name. He took a screenshot, saved it to his documentation folder, added it to the timeline. The break came from a mistake. Jeffrey had been careful not to snoop, not to cross lines that would make him look like the controlling husband Sophia was painting him as. He checked only what he had legal right to access. Joint accounts, shared phone plans, public information. But Sophia made an error. On a Saturday morning, Jeffrey drove her car to get it washed. Something he did every few weeks as a small gesture, the kind of maintenance task that kept a marriage running smoothly. When he started the engine, the Bluetooth automatically connected to her phone, which she'd left synced from the last time she'd driven. The screen lit up with a notification. Can't wait to see you tonight. Same place. Derek. Jeffrey stared at the text preview on the car's display screen. He didn't touch anything. Didn't scroll. Just read the message that had appeared unbidden. Derek. The name meant nothing to him. But the message told him everything he needed to know. Same place. This wasn't new. This was routine. Established. Jeffrey carefully disconnected her phone from the car's Bluetooth, his hands steady despite the strange hollowness spreading through his chest. He drove to the car wash, watched the brushes and soap cascade over the windows, paid the attendant, drove home. Inside, Sophia was on the couch, scrolling through her tablet. Car's all clean, Jeffrey said. Thanks. She didn't look up. Jeffrey went to his office, closed the door, and sat down at his desk. He pulled up a basic people search website and typed in the first name he could think of. Derek, North Dallas area, 30 to 45 years old. 15 minutes later, he had a name. Derek Holt, commercial real estate, leasing division for a major property management company. Married, 2 children. Photos on social media showing a man with an easy smile, wearing golf shirts and standing in front of office buildings. Jeffrey stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he closed the browser and opened a blank document. He began to type, organizing everything he knew into a clear timeline. Dates, observations, screenshots, location data, the credit card she'd opened in his name, the insurance policy he'd found statements for in the recycling bin 3 weeks ago, the one listing him as the insured party, with Sophia as the beneficiary, for an amount that made his stomach turn. He'd thought that was strange at the time, but had dismissed it. Now it fit into a larger picture. Jeffrey worked late into the afternoon, building a file that was comprehensive and damning. He wasn't angry. Anger was useless. He felt something colder, more purposeful. When Sophia left that evening for another girls' night, Jeffrey barely looked up from his computer. "Have fun," he said. She hesitated at the door, as if his lack of reaction had thrown her off script. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up." "Okay." After she left, Jeffrey continued working, organizing, documenting, building his case with the same precision he used to audit fleet operations. He wasn't trying to win an argument. He was constructing a defense. The police arrived on a Wednesday night, 3 weeks after Jeffrey had discovered Derek's name. 2 officers stood on the porch, young and professional, their expressions neutral. Jeffrey opened the door with his hands visible, non-threatening. "Jeffrey Crowley?" the taller officer asked. "Yes. We received a call about a domestic disturbance at this address. Mind if we come in?" Jeffrey stepped aside, his mind racing through possibilities. "There's no disturbance. It's just me and my wife home." Sophia appeared from the kitchen, and Jeffrey noticed immediately that she'd been crying, or appeared to have been crying. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face blotchy. She wrapped her arms around herself in a posture of vulnerability. "Ma'am," the second officer said gently. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Sophia said, her voice small. I got scared." He was yelling. I don't know what I thought." Jeffrey felt ice crystallize in his veins. This was it, the next phase of whatever plan she'd been constructing. "Sir, have you been arguing tonight?" the first officer asked. "No, we haven't spoken in hours. I've been working in my office." "He always says that," Sophia interjected softly, "that I'm imagining things, that I'm too sensitive. But I know what I heard. I know what I felt." The officers exchanged glances. They'd clearly done this before, walked into homes where the truth was murky, where 2 people offered competing realities. "Ma'am, are you injured?" the second officer asked. "No, he hasn't. He wouldn't." "But the anger, the way he looks at me sometimes." Sophia's voice broke convincingly. "I just needed someone to know, to have it on record." "Can we look around?" the first officer asked Jeffrey. Of course. They did a walkthrough, checked rooms, looked for signs of struggle, broken items, anything that would corroborate Sophia's story. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. In the living room, the officer asked Jeffrey, "Has there been any physical altercation tonight, sir?" "No." "Have you raised your voice? Threatened your wife in any way?" "No. I've been in my office for the past 3 hours. You can check my computer activity if you want. Timestamps on the work I've been doing." Sophia made a small sound, something between a sob and a laugh. "See? This is what he does. Everything is evidence. Everything is documented. He's obsessed with controlling the narrative." The officer turned to her. "Ma'am, we take these calls seriously, but we need to establish what happened tonight. Can you tell me specifically what your husband did that made you feel unsafe?" Sophia hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, but Jeffrey saw it. She'd painted herself into a corner. If she made a specific accusation, it could be checked, verified, or disproven. If she stayed vague, the officers would note the inconsistency. "It's hard to explain," she finally said. "It's not one thing. It's a pattern. The way he questions me, tracks my movements, makes me account for every minute I'm away from the house." The first officer wrote something in his notebook. "Has he ever been physically violent?" "No, but has he threatened you?" "Not in words, but the implication is always there." The officers spent another 20 minutes asking questions, taking notes. They spoke to Jeffrey separately, then Sophia. In the end, they told Sophia she could call if she felt threatened, gave her resource numbers for domestic support services. As they were leaving, the taller officer pulled Jeffrey aside. "Look, we have to file a report. It's policy when someone calls in. But just between us, this doesn't feel right. Her body language doesn't match her story. You seem calm. The house is clean. Nothing's out of place." He paused. "Just be careful. These situations can get complicated fast." "I understand. Thank you." After the police left, Sophia went straight upstairs without a word. Jeffrey heard the bedroom door lock. He returned to his office and added a new entry to his timeline. Police called to residents. False report filed. Officers found no evidence of disturbance. Then he picked up his phone and called the number Emily had sent him. Rivas Law Group. I need to speak with Cole Rivas. It's urgent. Cole Rivas had an office in a mid-rise building near downtown Dallas. Understated but professional. No expensive art on the walls. No leather-bound law books for show. Just clean lines, organized files, and the sense of someone who treated law as mechanics rather than theater. Jeffrey sat across from him 2 days after the police visit and explained everything. The timeline, the affair, the credit card fraud, the insurance policy, the false report. Cole listened without interrupting, making occasional notes on a legal pad. He was in his 50s, Jeffrey guessed, with gray threading through dark hair and the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too many marriages dissolve. When Jeffrey finished, Cole set down his pen. You've been thorough, more than most people in your position. I manage logistics for a living. I'm used to documentation. That's going to help you. Cole leaned back in his chair. But I need you to understand something. Your wife isn't acting out of emotion. This is strategic. The false police report, the narrative she's building about being controlled and unsafe. These are tactical moves. I know. Do you? Because most people in your situation want to believe their spouse is just confused or hurting or making poor choices. They want to save the marriage even as it's burning down around them. Cole's gaze was direct. You need to be clear about what you're willing to do here. I want out of this marriage, Jeffrey said. Cleanly, fairly, but protected. Then we need to move carefully. If she's planning something, and based on that insurance policy, I think she is, we need to stay ahead of her. File for legal separation. Request a financial forensic review. Document everything she does from this point forward. What about the fraud? The credit card? We'll include that in the filing. Push for a criminal referral if necessary. Cole paused. But Jeffrey, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. She's already playing the victim card, and that's effective in court. We have to be strategic in how we counter it. What do you need from me? Everything you've already collected. Keep documenting. Don't engage in arguments. Stay calm no matter what she does. And absolutely do not confront her about the affair or accuse her of anything directly. Let the evidence speak. Jeffrey nodded. When do we file? Next week. I'll prepare a separation agreement and request for financial review. We'll make it look routine, non-confrontational. Meanwhile, I'm going to recommend you get copies of everything. Bank statements, credit reports, insurance documents, phone records if you can legally access them. The more information we have, the better position we are. As Jeffrey left the office, his phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Need to talk tonight. Important. He didn't reply immediately. Instead, he forwarded the message to Cole with a brief note. Starting already. That evening, Sophia was waiting for him in the living room when he got home from work. She positioned herself on the couch, a box of tissues nearby, her expression carefully arranged into something between sad and determined. We need to talk about us, she said as Jeffrey set down his briefcase. Okay. I think. She paused, looked down at her hands. I think we should separate, just for a while. Give each other space to figure out what we really want. Jeffrey felt the cold clarity he'd been carrying for weeks sharpen into something diamond hard. She was trying to control the narrative, to make the separation her idea, her choice. Probably planning to use it as evidence of his failings, his inability to meet her needs. If that's what you want, Jeffrey said evenly. Sophia looked up, startled. You're not going to fight for us? You just said you want space. I'm respecting that. But don't you even care? Don't you want to know why? Jeffrey sat down in the chair across from her, maintaining distance. I think you've already made up your mind, Sophia. Fighting about it won't change anything. She stared at him, and for a moment, her mask slipped. He saw frustration flicker across her face, quickly replaced by practiced hurt. This is exactly the problem, she said, voice rising. You're so cold, so detached, like our marriage doesn't even matter to you. I'm trying to give you what you asked for. No, you're punishing me, making me feel guilty for needing something you can't provide. Sophia stood, paced to the window. I can't keep living like this. Walking on eggshells. wondering if you're going to question everything I do." Jeffrey didn't respond, just watched as she performed her monologue, each word chosen for maximum emotional impact. "I'll stay with my sister for a while," Sophia said finally. "Give us both time to think." "All right, that's it? Just all right? What do you want me to say?" She grabbed her purse, her phone, keys already in hand like she'd been planning this exit. "I want you to show some emotion, some sign that you give a damn about our marriage." Jeffrey met her eyes. "I think we're past that point, don't you?" Something in his tone must have registered because Sophia went very still. For just a second, he saw her reassess, recalculate. "I'll come by this weekend to get some clothes," she said, her voice cooler now. "The house will be here." After she left, Jeffrey sat in the quiet living room and texted Cole. "She just moved out. Said she's staying with her sister." The reply came quickly. "Good. Let her go. Don't contact her unless necessary. Document everything." Jeffrey put his phone away and looked around the house. Their house. The home they'd built together over 8 years of marriage. Pictures on the walls for vacations they'd taken. Furniture they'd chosen together. The coffee table they'd assembled one Sunday afternoon, laughing at the incomprehensible instructions. All of it felt hollow now. Props in a life that had been disintegrating while he wasn't paying attention. He stood and went to his office. Opened his documentation file. Added, S moved out voluntarily. Claims temporary separation. Packed minimal belongings. Mentioned sister's place. Then he pulled up the forensic financial review request Cole had sent him to review. It was comprehensive, requesting 5 years of financial history, credit reports, loan applications, insurance policies. Jeffrey read through it twice, then signed electronically and sent it back to Cole. If Sophia was building a case against him, he'd build a better one. More thorough, more documented, more unassailable. He'd spent his entire career finding the truth in data, in patterns, in the spaces between what people said and what they did. Now he'd apply those same skills to saving himself. The forensic analysis came back 3 weeks later. Jeffrey sat in Cole's office, looking at a report that was both thorough and damning. "This is worse than I thought," Cole said, flipping through pages. "The insurance policy was taken out 8 months ago, as you knew. But look at this," he pointed to a highlighted section. "She corresponded with the insurance agent about health concerns regarding you. Mentioned mood swings. Asked about accelerated death benefit clauses." Jeffrey felt his stomach turn. "I don't have health concerns. My last physical was perfect." "I know. That's the point." She was creating a medical narrative to justify the policy, making you look unstable, setting groundwork. Cole turned to another page. "Then there's the credit card. Open in your name, but all charges are hers. She's racked up about $8,000 in 3 weeks. $8,000. Restaurants, hotels, shopping. All in North Dallas. Want to guess what's in North Dallas?" Derek Holt's office and his apartment. Separated from his wife 2 months ago, according to public records. Renting a place near Addison. Cole set down the report. "Jeffrey, this goes beyond adultery. The insurance policy, the false police report, the financial fraud. This is conspiracy. This is someone planning to make you disappear." The words hung in the air like smoke. "You're saying she was trying to." "I'm saying the evidence suggests intent. Whether she would have acted on it, we'll never know. But we have enough here to get law enforcement involved." Jeffrey stared at the report, processing. His wife of 8 years. The woman he'd built a life with, planned a future with. Had been planning to kill him? Or just positioning herself to benefit if something happened to him? The distinction felt academic. "What's our next move?" Jeffrey asked. "We file this with the court as part of the separation proceedings. But I'm also recommending we forward everything to the district attorney's office. Let them decide if criminal charges are warranted." Cole paused. "This is going to get public, Jeffrey. There's no way to keep this quiet once prosecutors are involved." "I understand. Your wife will fight back. She'll claim you're harassing her, that this is retaliation for the separation. She'll play victim harder than ever." "Let her," Jeffrey said quietly. "The evidence speaks for itself." Cole studied him for a moment. "You're handling this better than most people would." "I'm not handling it. I'm just refusing to let it destroy me." "Fair enough." Cole gather the papers. I'll prepare the filings. This goes to court next month. In the meantime, maintain distance. Don't engage. And for God's sake, be careful. If she was thinking about the insurance payout before, she might escalate now that she knows we're onto her. Jeffrey left the office and drove home through afternoon traffic, his mind replaying the past 8 months in a new light. Every strange behavior, every unexplained absence, every time Sophia had made him feel like he was overreacting, being paranoid, imagining problems that didn't exist. She'd been gaslighting him while planning his death, or at least his convenient disappearance from her life. That evening, Jeffrey changed the locks on the house, called the bank to freeze joint accounts pending the separation, forwarded all the documentation to his sister with instructions on what to do if anything happened to him. Then he sat in his living room and waited for whatever came next. The call from Derek Holt came as a surprise. Jeffrey's phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon, unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Jeffrey Crowley? The voice was male, nervous, younger than Jeffrey expected. Who's this? Derek Holt. I know you know about me and Sophia. I need to talk to you. Jeffrey's first instinct was to hang up, but curiosity overrode disgust. Talk, not on the phone. Can we meet? There's a coffee shop on. No. If you want to talk now. A pause. Background noise. Derek was calling from somewhere public, maybe outside. Okay, here's the thing. I'm out. I told Sophia yesterday that we're done. She didn't take it well. Not my problem. It might be. She's not stable, man. I thought she was just unhappy in her marriage, looking for something exciting. But some of the things she's been saying, Derek's voice dropped. About you. About the insurance. About being free. I thought it was just talk, but now I don't know. Jeffrey's grip tightened on the phone. What exactly did she say? That once you were gone, she'd have everything. The house, the money, freedom. I asked what she meant, and she laughed. Said she was just fantasizing. But it didn't sound like fantasy, Jeffrey. It sounded like a plan. And you're telling me this now because my lawyer said I need to protect myself. That if anything happens to you, I could be implicated as an accessory. And because Derek hesitated. Because this is messed up. I'm not a good guy. I cheated on my wife. I helped ruin your marriage. But I'm not a murderer. And I don't want to be connected to one. Jeffrey stood and walked to his home office. Phone pressed to his ear. You willing to testify to what she said? If it keeps me out of prison, yeah. My lawyer's already documenting everything. Messages, recordings. I have it all. Forward them to my attorney. Cole Rivas, downtown Dallas. You can find the contact information online. Okay, I will. Derek paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About your marriage. About all of this. Jeffrey hung up without responding. 3 hours later, Cole called. Just got a very interesting package from Derek Holt's attorney. Messages between him and your wife. Some of them are explicit, not sexually, but in terms of intent. She talks about being free once you're out of the picture. Discusses how the insurance payout would let her start over. Mentions that your death would look like an accident because of your documented mental health issues. I don't have mental health issues. She's creating them. The police report. The narrative she's been building. It's all groundwork. Jeffrey, this is attempted murder conspiracy. We're close enough that the DA will prosecute. What happens now? Now I forward this to the prosecutor's office. They'll review, likely open an investigation. Your wife will probably be arrested within the week. Jeffrey sat down at his desk, staring at the documentation he'd been building for months. It had started as self-protection, a way to defend himself in divorce court. Now, it was evidence in a criminal case. Do it, he said. You're sure? Once we cross this line. She crossed the line when she decided I was disposable. I'm just making sure it's documented. Cole was quiet for a moment. All right, I'll make the call. The DA's office moved faster than Jeffrey expected. Within 5 days, Detective Amanda Torres from the Dallas Police Department called to schedule an interview. She was professional, direct, with the kind of voice that suggested she'd heard every lie humans could tell and wasn't impressed by any of them. Jeffrey met her at the police station downtown, Cole sitting beside him in the interview room. Mr. Crowley, Torres began, sliding a folder across the table. We've reviewed the evidence your attorney provided. The insurance policy, the credit fraud, the messages between your wife and Derek Holt. We've also obtained phone records and financial transactions that corroborate your timeline. Good, Jeffrey said simply. I need to ask you some direct questions. Have you ever threatened your wife? No. Have you ever been physically violent with her? No. Have you engaged in any behavior that could be construed as controlling or abusive? I asked normal questions about where she was going and when she'd be home. She characterized those as interrogation. The evidence shows otherwise. Torres made a note. The false police report. You filed a complaint about that? No. I documented it, but I didn't file a formal complaint. Why not? Jeffrey glanced at Cole, who nodded permission to answer. Because I understood what she was doing. She was building a narrative. Filing a complaint would have made me look vindictive, played into her story that I was retaliating against her for leaving. I chose to document and wait. Smart, Torres said, and Jeffrey caught what might have been approval in her tone. Mr. Holt has agreed to cooperate with our investigation. His attorney provided recordings of phone conversations with your wife. In one, she explicitly discusses the insurance payout and how your death would be ruled accidental given your history of instability. I don't have a history of instability. We know. That's part of what makes this prosecutable. She was creating a false narrative to justify future actions. Torres closed the folder. We're building a case for conspiracy to commit fraud, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. The murder charge is the hardest to prove. She never took direct action. But the combination of the policy, the false medical claims, the messages about you being gone, it's enough for a grand jury. When will you arrest her? Jeffrey asked. Soon. We're coordinating with her attorney to arrange a surrender. She's currently staying at her sister's residence in Richardson. We have surveillance to ensure she doesn't flee. After the interview, Jeffrey walked out into bright Texas sunlight, Cole beside him. How do you feel? Cole asked. Jeffrey considered the question. Empty. Not relieved, not angry. Just empty. That's normal. You're mourning what you thought you had. I thought I had a marriage. Turns out I had a target on my back. Cole stopped at his car. The preliminary hearing is in 2 weeks. You'll need to testify. The defense will come after you hard. Try to paint you as vindictive, controlling. Everything she's been saying. Let them try. Jeffrey, Cole hesitated. When this goes public, people will talk. Your colleagues, neighbors, people you thought were friends. Some will believe her version. That's how this works. I know. Jeffrey unlocked his car. But I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing this to survive. Sophia Crowley was arrested on a Tuesday morning outside her sister's apartment in Richardson. Jeffrey learned about it from the news. His phone buzzed with alerts. Local news stations had picked up the story. Local woman arrested in alleged murder-for-hire plot against husband. The coverage was sensational, focused on the insurance policy and Derek Holt's cooperation. They used Sophia's Facebook photo, her smiling at a charity event, looking wholesome and normal. Within hours, Jeffrey's phone started ringing. Reporters, neighbors, former friends asking if it was true, if he was okay, if he needed anything. He ignored most of them. Answered calls only from family. Emily texted, just saw the news. Are you safe? I'm fine. It's over. Do you need me to come up? Not yet. Maybe for the trial. His mother called, frantic with worry. He spent 20 minutes reassuring her, explaining that he was safe, that the police were involved, that everything was under control. But sweetheart, his mother said, voice trembling, she was planning to kill you. Your own wife. I know, Mom. How are you so calm? Because being calm kept me alive. Getting emotional now won't change what happened. At work, Jeffrey's boss called him into the office. Take whatever time you need, Tom said, concern evident on his face. This is God, Jeffrey, this is insane. We had no idea. I didn't want it to affect work. Your wife was arrested for trying to kill you. That affects everything. Tom leaned forward. Seriously, take leave. We'll hold your position. Come back when you're ready. Jeffrey appreciated the offer, but declined. Work was stability. Routine. The one part of his life that hadn't been contaminated by Sophia's betrayal. I'd rather stay busy, he said. At least take a few days. Process this. Talk to someone. Jeffrey agreed to a week, mainly to stop the conversation. That evening, he sat in his empty house and watched the news coverage. They'd gotten Sophia's booking photo. She looked tired, angry, nothing like the composed woman who'd walked down their stairs 3 months ago in a tailored dress. The anchor's voice was grave. Prosecutors alleged that Crowley carefully orchestrated a plan to benefit from her husband's death, including taking out a substantial life insurance policy and creating false medical narratives about his mental health. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You destroyed her life. Hope you're happy. Then another, controlling abuser. She was trying to escape you. Jeffrey blocked both numbers and turned off his phone. He'd known this would happen. That Sophia's narrative would persist despite the evidence. That people would choose sides based on emotion rather than facts. But he also knew the truth. And soon, a jury would too. The preliminary hearing was held in a downtown Dallas courtroom on a humid morning in late July. Jeffrey sat behind the prosecution table, Cole beside him. Across the aisle, Sophia sat with her attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Vance who specialized in defending the indefensible. This was the first time Jeffrey had seen Sophia since her arrest. She'd lost weight, her face drawn and pale. She wore a conservative navy suit, minimal makeup, looking as vulnerable as possible. When their eyes met, hers hardened into something ugly. Hatred, pure and undiluted. Jeffrey looked away. The judge, Harold Brennan, was in his 60s, known for being thorough and impatient with theatrics. He reviewed the charges: conspiracy to commit fraud, insurance fraud, identity theft, filing false police reports, conspiracy to commit murder. Ms. Vance, Judge Brennan said, how does your client plead? Not guilty, Your Honor. Furthermore, we contend that these charges are the result of a vindictive campaign by Ms. Crowley's estranged husband, who has weaponized the legal system to punish her for ending their marriage. Your client didn't end the marriage. The prosecutor, Assistant DA Michael Reeves, interjected. She attempted to end her husband's life. Alleged, Vance said sharply. Based on circumstantial evidence and the testimony of a discredited witness who is himself under investigation for fraud. Judge Brennan raised a hand. Save it for trial. Mr. Reeves, present your evidence. The preliminary hearing lasted 3 hours. Reeves presented the insurance documents, Sophia's emails to the insurance agent, the credit card statements, phone records showing her communications with Derek Holt. Then came Derek's testimony. He looked diminished on the stand, nervous and ashamed. Vance tried to discredit him, paint him as a liar, trying to save himself from prosecution. Mr. Holt, you were having an affair with Miss Crowley, correct? Yes. And when that affair ended, you faced consequences in your own divorce proceedings? Yes. So you have motive to lie about Ms. Crowley, to shift blame onto her rather than accept responsibility for your own actions? I'm not lying. I have recordings. Recordings you made without her consent. Recordings that could be edited, manipulated. They weren't. Mr. Holt, isn't it true that you owed money to several creditors and saw an opportunity to profit by cooperating with prosecutors? No. I'm cooperating because what she planned was wrong. Vance's expression was skeptical. She continued the attack for another 20 minutes, trying to break Derek's credibility. But then Reeves played the recordings. Sophia's voice filled the courtroom, clear and damning. Once Jeffrey's out of the picture, I'll have everything. The house, the insurance, freedom. Derek, we could actually build something real. You keep talking about him being gone. What does that mean? It means accidents happen, especially to people with documented mental health problems. Sophia, that sounds... Relax. I'm just thinking out loud. Planning. You know me. I like to have a strategy. The courtroom went silent. Jeffrey watched Sophia's face drain of color. Judge Brennan leaned forward. Ms. Vance, your client clearly discusses her husband's death as beneficial. She references mental health problems he doesn't have, insurance policies that would pay out. How do you explain that? Venting, Your Honor. Frustrated talk between lovers. Not actual intent. She says, I like to have a strategy, Brennan countered. That's not venting. That's planning. Vance tried to recover, but the damage was done. When the hearing concluded, Judge Brennan ruled that there was sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. Sophia would remain free on bond, but with conditions: no contact with Jeffrey, no leaving the county, GPS monitoring. As they left the courtroom, Sophia tried to approach Jeffrey in the hallway. "Jeffrey, please." Cole stepped between them immediately. "No contact means no contact. I just want to talk." "To explain." "Explain in court," Jeffrey said quietly. "Where it's on record." Sophia's face twisted. "You're enjoying this. Destroying me." "No," Jeffrey said, meeting her eyes. "I'm just refusing to be disposed of quietly." Her lawyer pulled her away before she could respond. Outside, reporters clustered, shouting questions. Jeffrey ignored them, walking to his car with Cole running interference. "That went well," Cole said once they were safely inside Jeffrey's vehicle. "Did it?" The judge saw through her act. The recordings were damning. "Reeves is building a solid case." Cole paused. "You okay?" "I heard my wife plot my death. I'm as okay as anyone could be in that situation." "Fair point." Jeffrey drove home through afternoon traffic, his mind replaying the recordings. Sophia's voice, casual and cold, discussing his death like it was a business transaction. He'd loved that voice once. Looked forward to hearing it when he came home from work. Found comfort in it during hard times. Now, it was evidence in a criminal trial. That evening, Jeffrey ordered takeout and ate alone at his kitchen table. The house felt cavernous, every sound amplified. The refrigerator humming, the AC cycling on, his own breathing. He thought about calling Emily or his mother or one of the few friends who'd reached out with genuine concern. But he didn't want to talk. Didn't want to rehash the day, the hearing, the look on Sophia's face. He just wanted to exist in the quiet, let the reality of his survival settle into his bones. He was still alive. Despite everything, he was alive. That was enough for now. The trial began on a cold morning in October. Jeffrey arrived at the courthouse early, dressed in a dark suit, his expression neutral. He'd spent the past 3 months in a strange limbo, working, going through the motions of normal life while preparing to testify against his wife in a criminal trial. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters and cameras. The case had gained national attention. Texas wife allegedly plots husband's murder for insurance money, made for compelling headlines. Jeffrey kept his head down, walking past microphones and shouted questions. Inside, the courtroom was formal and oppressive. High ceilings, wood paneling, the seal of Texas mounted behind the judge's bench. Jeffrey took his seat behind the prosecution table, Cole beside him. Across the aisle, Sophia sat with Patricia Vance and a team of junior attorneys. She wore a pale blue dress, pearls, minimal makeup, the image of a wronged woman. The jury filed in, 12 people who would decide Sophia's fate. Jeffrey studied their faces, trying to read something, anything. They looked ordinary, tired, like people called away from their regular lives to judge someone else's worst moments. Judge Brennan entered, and everyone stood. The state of Texas versus Sophia Marie Crowley, the bailiff announced. "All rise." Assistant DA Michael Reeves delivered opening statements first. He was methodical, laying out the evidence piece by piece. The insurance policy, the false medical claims, the credit fraud, the messages to Derek Holt, the timeline that showed careful planning rather than spontaneous action. "This isn't a case about a marriage falling apart," Reeves told the jury. "This is a case about premeditated conspiracy. The defendant didn't just want a divorce. She wanted her husband gone, dead, and she put together a plan to make it happen while positioning herself to profit from his death." Then Patricia Vance stood for the defense. She was good. Jeffrey had to admit that. She painted Sophia as a trapped woman, a victim of emotional abuse and control who'd made poor choices out of desperation. "Jeffrey Crowley presents as calm and collected," Vance said. But behind closed doors, he monitored his wife's every movement, questioned her constantly, made her account for every minute away from home. He turned their marriage into a prison. And when Sophia Crowley tried to escape, tried to build a life outside his control, he weaponized the legal system against her. Vance described the insurance policy as routine financial planning. The messages to Derek as venting, frustrated talk between lovers. The credit card as attempt to gain financial independence. This is a case about a man who couldn't accept that his wife no longer wanted him, Vance concluded. So he's trying to destroy her, to paint her as a criminal when her only crime was wanting freedom. Jeffrey listened, his face impassive. He'd expected this. The narrative Sophia had been building for months, now amplified and presented as truth. But he had something Vance didn't have. Documentation, evidence, facts. The prosecution called witnesses methodically. The insurance agent who'd sold Sophia the policy testified about her unusual questions, her specific interest in accident clauses and mental health exclusions. Did Ms. Crowley mention her husband having mental health issues? Reeves asked. Yes. She said he'd been unstable. Mood swings. She was worried about his safety. Did she provide medical documentation? No. She said he refused treatment. And based on these false claims, you sold her a policy worth how much? $500,000. A bank representative testified about the credit card fraud, showing the card had been opened online using Jeffrey's social security number and identity information. Derek Holt took the stand again, repeating his testimony from the preliminary hearing. Vance tried to break him, questioning his credibility, his motives. Mr. Holt, you were married when you began an affair with Ms. Crowley, correct? Yes. So you're comfortable lying to people you've made commitments to? I was wrong. I'm not proud of what I did. But you expect this jury to believe you're telling the truth now. I have recordings. Messages. They speak for themselves. When the recordings were played again, Jeffrey watched the jury's faces. Some showed disgust. Others looked uncomfortable. One older woman kept glancing at Sophia with an expression that might have been pity or might have been judgment. Then it was Jeffrey's turn to testify. He took the stand on the third day of trial, placed his hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Reeves walked him through the timeline. The changes in Sophia's behavior, the discovery of the affair, the false police report, the documentation Jeffrey had compiled. Mr. Crowley, why did you start documenting your wife's actions? Because she was creating a false narrative, making me out to be controlling and dangerous when I wasn't. I needed evidence to defend myself. Did you ever threaten your wife? No. Ever physically harm her? No. Ever restrict her freedom or movement? No. I asked normal questions about where she was going. That's not control. That's marriage. Then Vance cross-examined him. She was aggressive, trying to rattle him, make him seem cold or vindictive. Mr. Crowley, you admit to monitoring your wife's phone location? I checked our shared phone plan's location history. That's not monitoring. It's public information we both had access to. You took screenshots of her messages? Messages that appeared on our shared car display. I didn't hack her phone. You hired an attorney and began building a case against her before even confronting her about the affair. I hired an attorney to protect myself when I realized she was committing fraud and filing false police reports. Protect yourself? Or punish her for leaving? Jeffrey met Vance's eyes steadily. If I wanted to punish her, I would have confronted her immediately. Made a scene. Instead, I documented the truth and let the evidence speak for itself. The truth as you see it. The truth as it is. Supported by bank records, insurance documents, phone records, and her own recorded words. Vance tried different angles, but Jeffrey remained calm, answering each question without emotion. He'd spent months preparing for this, reviewing testimony with Reeves, anticipating attacks. When he finally stepped down from the stand, he felt hollowed out but steady. The defense called Sophia on the fifth day. She took the stand carefully, hands folded, expression vulnerable. Vance led her through a sympathetic version of events. Sophia, tell the jury about your marriage to Jeffrey. It started out wonderful. He was kind, attentive. But over the years, he became more controlling, questioning where I went, checking my phone, making me feel like I couldn't breathe. How did that make you feel? Trapped, like I was living in a cage. I started going out more, joining activities, trying to have a life outside our marriage. And that made him worse. Did you have an affair with Derek Holt? Yes. Sophia's voice broke convincingly. It was wrong. I know that. But I was lonely. Derek made me feel seen. Valued. An insurance policy? My financial advisor suggested it. Said we should have coverage in case something happened to either of us. I didn't think anything of it. The messages Derek recorded, where you discussed your husband being gone. Sophia looked down, tears starting. I was venting. I was frustrated and scared, and I said things I didn't mean. When you're in an abusive situation, you fantasize about escape. That's all it was. Fantasy. Vance let that sit with the jury. Then shifted topics. Sophia, did you ever intend to harm your husband? Never. I would never hurt Jeffrey. I just wanted out of the marriage. Then why didn't you simply divorce him? I was afraid. Afraid he'd use the legal system against me. Turn everyone against me. Make me look like the villain when I was the victim. Sophia looked at the jury. And that's exactly what he did. When Reeve cross-examined, he was precise and merciless. Ms. Crowley, you testified that the insurance policy was your financial advisor's idea. Can you provide the name of this advisor? Sophia hesitated. I don't remember. It was months ago. You don't remember who advised you to take out a $500,000 policy on your husband? I meet with several financial people. I can't recall which one suggested it. We've subpoenaed records from every financial institution you've dealt with. Not one advisor recommended this policy. In fact, you researched it yourself online. We have your search history. Sophia's composure cracked slightly. I may have looked into it myself. You lied to the insurance agent about your husband's mental health, didn't you? I was concerned. Did Jeffrey have mental health issues? Yes or no? He seemed unstable. Has he ever been diagnosed with any mental health condition? Not officially, but yes or no, Ms. Crowley? No. So you lied to the insurance company to obtain a policy that would pay you $500,000 if your husband died? It wasn't like that. You opened a credit card in his name without his knowledge, correct? I needed financial independence. That's fraud, Ms. Crowley. You committed identity theft against your husband. I was trying to protect myself by stealing from him, by lying about him, by discussing his death with your lover, as if it were an inevitability. Sophia was crying now, but Reeves didn't relent. You called the police and filed a false domestic disturbance report, didn't you? I was scared. The officers found no evidence of disturbance, no signs of violence, nothing to corroborate your story. You filed a false report to create a paper trail, to make your husband look dangerous. Admit it. I felt unsafe. Because he asked where you were going? Because he noticed you'd changed your passcode? Because he dared to question why you were coming home at midnight smelling like another man? Objection. Vance shouted. Argumentative. Sustained. Judge Brennan said. Mr. Reeves, rein it in. But the damage was done. The jury had seen Sophia lose her composure, seen her lies exposed one by one. When she finally left the stand, she looked broken. But Jeffrey felt no satisfaction, no victory, just the cold certainty that the truth was finally visible. Closing arguments came on day 8. Vance made one final appeal to emotion, painting Sophia as a trapped woman who'd made mistakes, but not crimes. This is a case about a failing marriage and a husband who couldn't let go. Yes, Sophia Crowley made poor choices. Yes, she had an affair. Yes, she took out an insurance policy and said things in anger she regrets. But none of that makes her a criminal. None of that proves intent to murder. The state has shown you evidence of a messy, painful divorce. Not a crime. Reeves countered with facts. The defense wants you to believe this is about a marriage ending. It's not. This is about a woman who systematically planned to benefit from her husband's death. She researched life insurance policies with specific accident clauses. She lied to obtain those policies, creating false medical narratives. She opened credit cards in her husband's name, stole his identity. She filed false police reports to establish him as unstable and dangerous. And she discussed with her lover how she'd be free, financially secure, once her husband was gone. That's not fantasy. That's conspiracy. That's premeditation. And that's criminal. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Jeffrey spent those days in a strange, suspended state, unable to focus on work or home or anything beyond waiting. When the call came, verdict reached, he felt nothing. Just numbness. In the courtroom, the jury foreman stood. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of insurance fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of identity theft, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of filing false police reports, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant not guilty. Jeffrey exhaled. The murder charge hadn't stuck. The evidence of planning was strong, but not definitive enough. But the other charges were enough. Sophia sat frozen, staring straight ahead. Judge Brennan scheduled sentencing for the following month. The sentencing hearing was brief. Judge Brennan reviewed the evidence. The verdict, Sophia's complete lack of remorse throughout the trial. Ms. Crowley, he said, you engaged in a calculated campaign to defraud, defame, and destroy your husband. You lied to insurance companies. You stole his identity. You filed false reports with law enforcement. You showed no regard for the law, for your marriage vows, or for basic human decency. While the jury didn't find sufficient evidence to convict on conspiracy to murder, the evidence suggests you were planning exactly that. He sentenced her to 5 years on each fraud count, to be served concurrently. With the identity theft and false reporting charges, the total came to 5 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 3. Sophia was led away in handcuffs, her face blank. Jeffrey watched her go and felt only emptiness. 6 months later, Jeffrey sold the house in Plano. He couldn't live there anymore. Every room held memories that had been poisoned, recontextualized by what he now knew. The kitchen where she'd prepared meals while planning his death. The bedroom where she'd slept beside him while messaging her lover. The living room where she'd accused him of being controlling while stealing his identity. He moved to a smaller place near the edge of town. 1 bedroom, modest, with a view of undeveloped land rather than manicured suburban lawns. Emily came to visit, helped him unpack boxes. How are you really? She asked, sitting on his new couch with coffee. Surviving. That's not the same as healing. I know. Jeffrey looked out the window at empty fields. But it's a start. People at work still asking about it. Less now. The news cycle moved on. I'm just a guy who almost got killed by his wife. That's my identity now. That's not your identity. That's something that happened to you. Jeffrey smiled without humor. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Emily left after the weekend, making him promise to call more often, to not isolate himself. He promised, and mostly kept it. On quiet evenings, Jeffrey cooked simple meals, read books he'd been meaning to get to for years, and slept without listening for lies. People sometimes asked if he felt guilty, if he regretted how things ended, if he wished he'd handled it differently. Jeffrey always answered the same way. I didn't punish her. I just refused to be disposable. He'd spent months documenting the truth while Sophia built narratives. He'd stayed calm while she escalated. He'd protected himself while she tried to erase him. And in doing so, he'd saved his own life. Some nights, he thought about forgiveness, about whether he should let go of the anger, the betrayal, the cold fury that still lived in his chest like a stone. But forgiveness felt like surrender, like saying what she did was forgivable when it wasn't. She'd planned to make him disappear, to cash in on his death, to build a new life on the foundation of his absence. That wasn't something you forgave. That was something you survived. Jeffrey sat on a small patio one evening in late spring, watching the sun set over empty fields. The air was warm, cicadas singing their mechanical songs. His phone buzzed with a message from Cole. Sophia filed for parole hearing. Just FYI, it'll be denied too early. But thought you should know. Jeffrey read it twice, then put the phone away. She was still out there, still trying to manipulate systems, still looking for angles. But she wasn't his problem anymore. He'd chosen to step out of her way, to let consequences unfold naturally, to refuse the role she'd written for him. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Jeffrey finished his coffee, went inside, and closed the door on another day of survival. It wasn't happiness. Not yet. But it was peace. And for now, that was enough.